Hello everyone. If you guys are able to hear me, please ping in the chat to acknowledge. So, am I audible? Okay. So, okay. Hi, Dilip. Yeah, thank you. So, let me start the session. Put this into slideshow mode. So, basically, I have started this sessions about DevOps knowledge sharing, maybe like almost a month back. So far, I have taken three sessions, starting from the explaining from the what are all DevOps practices, and then discussing about how CICD is helping for DevOps practices automation perspective. So basically, in that aspect, so far we have seen the basics of what are the pillars of DevOps practices, and we discussed about what is continuous integration, what is continuous deployment, and what is continuous delivery process and all. And I also showed up demo on the code on which I'm going to create a CICD pipeline, right, in the last part basically. So that's the kind of summary of so far sessions actually. So let me jump on to today's session. So in today's session, we will anyway touch upon the basics of DevOps practices, because some of you might have been joining in this session newly. So I will also touch upon like what are all the DevOps practices, and how we can help in organizations to achieve the faster time to market to release the product and the services, right, they're offering to clients, right. So I'll touch upon that, and I will also explain quickly explain about what is CICD, and continuous delivery and deployment process, and we will again just see the quick introduction of the what is the what is the demo Golang project I have created for this CICD demo, and then I'll explain quickly on about what is GitHub Actions, how it can be helpful to create CICD workflows and all. Then we will see the workflow code I have created for automating my Golang project basically, right? That's the idea for this session today. Okay, so and yeah, so before moving on, like I'm Saravanan, and I have been a DevOps SRE practitioner for more than 7 years, and I'm also a technology blogger, and I like to share my knowledge to community as well as to developer audience as well, right? And since I'm a community contributor, I have been recognized as HashiCard ambassador as well as AWS community builder. Recently, I have started my own company to to provide DevOps automation services, and later taking up with the product ideas whatever I have in mind with my company, right. So that's about me. So you can just scan the QR there to know about me in my portfolio website, and there I have also given my LinkedIn URL, GitHub URL, and everything. So if anyone wanted to connect with me, I'm open for connections. That's about me, and we'll move on to the session now. Yeah, so for a few, maybe for few 20 minutes, 15 20 minutes, we'll just do the recap of our earlier sessions, what we discussed in part 1 to 3, right, as I mentioned, right? Okay, so in the part 1 and 2, I think majorly I covered about what is DevOps, right? So people basically might be thinking DevOps as only a CI/CD. Basically, it started as a doing the CI/CD when the concept was came maybe around 10 years back. But later it has evolved into the organizational cultural mindset change basically. So it's actually a continuous process in which organization needs to adapt the cultural mindset change of adapting to DevOps culture. Basically, that starts with from the planning stage of the product, and then creating requirements for developing the product, and then uh, taking the requirement for the development, and doing the automation of doing the development and build, test, and deployment, everything, right? So basically it starts from the from the top stakeholder who needs to take the decision of moving the organization into DevOps cultural mindset change, and it has to pass to till the developer level, junior developer level, so that everybody can work for a single goal to achieve the faster time to market, and to release the product and the services, right? So basically, like DevOps as a practice helps in achieving that, basically, right? So as I showed up here, DevOps practices comprises from the planning, analysis, design, and develop, like every aspect of software development cycle and application development life cycle has to be comes under DevOps as a practice, so that the goal for releasing the product and without any errors, and customer satisfaction also will be achieved, right? So that's a kind of overall idea about DevOps as a practice, and basically DevOps also recommending the way people and teams are working, right? So basically previously, like development team, operations team, testing team, everybody was working in silos, but DevOps as a practice, bringing in everybody together as a team, right? And then they would be working for one product mentality, right? So basically, like a developer should know about what operations team should be doing, and operations team should know like what kind of product they are going to uh, release in the production, right? And similarly, testing team also needs to know like what kind of uh, product they are going to test, and based on that they can write automation test cases, right? So that's the kind of idea about the DevOps practice. Like it needs the way in which, it needs a way in the way people and teams are working currently, right? So that's about one of the other aspect, and DevOps and Agile nowadays usually working together for a common goal, right? Basically, Agile team, setting up an Agile team is important in DevOps practice. Basically, you guys should be aware about the Scrum team setup and sprints and all, right? So these are all coming into picture as part of DevOps practices only. So there are different opinions might be there out there, but this is about my understanding about DevOps as a practice, and predominantly many companies are following these practices only, right? As part of achieving their product release cycle and all. So that's about DevOps as a practice introduction, and so these are the advantages of DevOps. Like as I mentioned, if every team is working together as a single product mentality, they can everything can be automated, and it will help in releasing the product faster time to market, and it will also bring in the improved system stability, because everything is like whatever developer developing as part of the development, that it will be packaged, and it will be version controlled, right? So if at all, if there are any changes required, that can be that will be going through the process of development cycle, and all the automation will be done based on the defined process, right? And system stability is approved because whatever the developer developing and created as a package, and it will be version controlled and stored in artifact storage, or or container registry kind of tools, right? So there won't be any chance of misconfiguring the product, right, in the package side, because it's already been stored in package repository, and that would be the ones going to the upper environments or higher environments and production, right? So that is helping in the improved system stability. Also, the processes like configuration management things and all will be there, so that whatever configuration set up in the developer environment, that will be cascaded across other environment actually. And since everything is the third thing is less time to record. Since everything is automated, it will be taking less time to achieve from the failure, basically, right? So if at all, if anything happens, even in the beta or production also, it can be recovered faster because everything is automated. And then test automation is now also test automation also brought in as part of the process, right? So that a developer would be sharing the knowledge about what kind of product test they're going to test, and the test automation team would be automating the test cases based on the developer's input, and they will also be ready with automation test cases, so that whenever developer releases the code to the integration testing or any other testing stages, right, they can be easily tested using test automation perspective, right? So as part of DevOps, that is also one of the advantage, and security is also one of the focus in DevOps. There are secure development practices, and Sonar Cube, or there are so many static code analysis tools also there, and for container there are container security scanning tools are available. So DevOps as a practice, it is also having advantage of security as one more pillar, right? So that's why it is also having security focus. And since the final one is, as per my views, like improved overall team productivity, because everybody is not having a siloed mentality, so that that's why it is helping the overall team productivity, because developer can interact with the operations team without any hesitation, and the operations team would be speaking with a testing team, or so that everybody working together, and overall team productivity improved, right, as part of DevOps as a practice, right? So if you guys have any questions, you can post it in the chat. Let me see if I can take up those questions at the final time. Okay. So that's about overall about introduction about DevOps as a practice. And in this discussion, we'll see what are all the pillars of DevOps as a practice it has, right? The first thing is agile software development is one of the important pillar in DevOps practice, wherein the Scrum team structure would be recommended to set up, so that for example, you guys also might be part of the Scrum teams, right? Basically, Scrum team should be having a developer, tester, operations team member, and business analyst, security automation team person, and there are so many aspects. So it's based on the organization's recommendation what kind of Scrum team they can set up, right? But it is important to have team members like a developer, one person from development team, and one person from DevOps team, and one person from operations team, and testing team. So these four members should be mandatory, but other members can also be there based on the requirement from the perspective of the recommendation from the process point of view. So that, as I mentioned, the siloed mentality should not be there as part of DevOps practice. So everybody from the team can work together, and work for a common goal, right? So yeah, and then next is So next important pillar is like continuous integration and continuous delivery and deployment, right? So DevOps as a practice recommending to automate everything, right? From development till the deployment, everything has to be automated, so that you can have lesser time to release your processes and products, basically, right? So anyway, our main goal of the session, or my main goal of this taking up these sessions is discussing CI/CD more in detail in the sessions, basically, right? For that only, I have picked up the concept of GitHub Actions, that is one of the orchestrator tool for implementing CI/CD, right? So as part of DevOps practice, we need to have a CI/CD automation, and there is also something called continuous testing also there nowadays, so that continuous testing also meaning it will be having automation test cases running in the various stages of development cycle, right? And then version control management. So basically like DevOps practice having should have a proper version control defined at the earliest stages itself for the development process, basically, right? So basically, there should be multiple ways. One of the better way I came across is there should be only two branches, right? One is a develop branch, and release branch, right? And then these two branches would be considered mainly, and then whatever development completed code would be promoted to release branch, and whatever the release environment code would be there, right? That would be having the final code that would be deployed into production, right? And there are multiple ways, but this is one of the example I took up for explaining like a version control, right? So version, as part of this version control management, we need to have a proper branching strategy as well as PR approval and review process for the code, whatever the code that is getting released, right? So as part of that, GitHub GitHub kind of tools having some automated workflows that can be used for PR approval process and all. Anyway, that we can see in the later sessions of my knowledge sharing. And the fourth one is like infrastructure code, right? So basically, DevOps as a practice recommending having the automated infrastructure creation using infrastructure code tools like Terraform or AWS CloudFormation or Azure ARM or Bicep or whatever. If you are adapting to one specific cloud, you can go for tools like CloudFormation for AWS or Azure ARM for Azure and all. But in general, nowadays, Terraform is getting more traction in compared to the cloud native, so not cloud native, cloud-based tools like CloudFormation and other tools. So, in my opinion, I usually use Terraform for automating my CI/CD infrastructure basically, because infrastructure as a code is important in DevOps practice, because in some cases. There should be some development requirement, need some infrastructure patching needs to be there as part of configuration setup, Nginx configuration of it can be you name it, everything can be configured in servers, right? So if at all, if there is a specific development requirement needing a configuration setup in the infrastructure, it is better to create an Terraform kind of infrastructure automation and apply your configuration using Ansible or tools like that, right? So basically, that also needs to be implemented as part of DevOps practice. And then the fifth one is that's what I mentioned, right? So there are server patches needs to be applied, and if at all if it needs to be applied before the code is getting deployed, that also needs to be done, right? So it is also a good practice to have it as part of the DevOps practice implementation to apply the patches using tools like Ansible or Chef or similar tools like that, right? And then final one is setting up a proper monitoring and observability tools for monitoring your application as well as infrastructure, right? Basically, for that we have to define a proper metrics at the earlier stages of development and infrastructure creation, so that it can be configured as a metric setup whenever the operations team should be ready for the production releases, right? So this is the kind of high level of DevOps implementation pillars basically, and our focus should be mainly in the continuous integration, continuous deployment, and continuous delivery part, right? So that's about it, and I'll be moving on, and like as I mentioned in the previous slide, if you have any questions, you can post it. I'll have a watch at the end of the session. Okay. Yeah, and so this is about the general flow of CI/CD. So basically, one other thing I wanted to share is I am just doing a free flow talking. Okay, so if there are any hiccups in the middle, apologies for that. But yeah, so whatever is coming to my mind, I'm just speaking with respect to this knowledge sharing, right? So that's how I write blogs also. Whatever there in my mind, I'll just edit as blogs and I'll find it later. So basically, in this slide, we'll discuss what is continuous integration, what is continuous delivery, and deployment, basically, right? So that's the discussion we have. So basically, for implementing CI and CD, one basic thing is there should be a code base on which we will be creating our CI/CD deployment automation, right? So for that, basically, a development team should be there. So they will be picking up a feature development task from Jira or any kind of ALM tools, and then they will be developing the application in the respective programming language or technology stack, right? And then once after it is been developed, they will be doing the unit testing, and if at all if there are any automation needs to be done in unit testing, they need to do that as well. And then they will be doing the build and deployment in the development environments, right? So basically, basically like once after the code is ready, they will be building the code and doing the unit testing on top of the build code, whatever is created as a package, right? If it is a work package or executable or whatever it is, right? And then once after that unit testing is over, they will be storing that package into the tools like Docker Hub Registry or Nexus kind of Artifactory or GitHub or whatever the artifact registry they wanted to store, they will be storing that, right? So basically, CA as the process starts when the kind of developer develops the code and checking in the code into the source control tools like Git, right? So continuous integration process is so basically like traditionally everything is manual. So even continuous integration process also manual, wherein developer doing everything manually, building the code and testing the code manually, and then storing it in the version control. Sorry, what's that called? Artifact tools like Access, right? So basically, due to that traditional approach, there may be chances the package might be getting deleted, or someone else is overrating the package, or whichever is pushed by the different developer, right? So that's why it is recommended to automate the process, and whatever developer testing in their development environment, right, and it has to be packaged and deployed to the other environment, right? So that for that only, like there should be strict process of automation testing and those kind of processes mandated for CA and CD basically, right? So basically, like CA as a process starts when the developer checking in the code into Git kind of source control tool till the code is packaged into a image or a container image or a war package or a executable, right? Whatever it is, right? So continuous integration process ends in that level, and then comes the continuous deployment process. Basically, like continuous deployment as a process, if we can define it as a if in any environment, if we don't need a deployment without any approval, we can go for continuous deployment, right? So in this representation, I consider this test environment as a lower environment test environment, so that the testers would be doing their automation test cases running and all, right? So for that, what we can do is we can have a automated infrastructure creation for creating an infrastructure that is required to deploy the developer's code, and then we can run the automated test on top of it, right? So basically, like since it's a lower environment, it is fine to have this continuous deployment flow without any approval of creating an infrastructure and deploying the code without any approval. But if there are circumstances in the project to have the for lower environment also, if there is a recommendation to deploy with the approval, then it can be followed. But as part of my demo, I have set up something like that, right? So that's why I'm kind of created like this in this slide. And also I wanted to show the differentiation between what is continuous deployment and what is continuous delivery in that aspect. Okay. So as I mentioned, like the continuous deployment is a process that starts after the code is pushed into the registry kind of artifact registry tools, and then it will be picking up the package from there, and it will be getting deployed into the environment, and then that automation testing or anything that needs to be running on top of that environment that can be run actually. Okay, so that's about continuous deployment. That is coming after the continuous integration, and continuous deliveries should happen on the approval of stakeholders, right? So continuous delivery is a process. You can consider it as that in the projects we would be having before the releases, there should be no-go calls, right? In that calls, every aspect of team organization stakeholder will be there from representing different teams, and they would be discussing in the call whether this particular feature is ready for the release into the production or staging environment, right? So in that aspect, if you wanted to do that kind of process, it is called continuous delivery. So the deployment in these environments should happen or must happen only after the approval of the top management stakeholders and other stakeholders in the team, right? It should not be happening without any approval. So that's the continuous delivery process actually. So that's about the high level of continuous integration, continuous deployment, and continuous delivery. Okay. So yeah, and I will be moving on. Like, if you guys have any questions, you can just let me know. Yeah, so this is the demo workflow, whatever I have in my that this is what I have created for my Golang code basically. So this is like, we are just moving from the conceptual discussion to the actual demo, whatever I have planned for the sessions, right? So basically, in my demo project, I have a Golang project. For that Golang project, I have set up a CICD process using GitHub Actions. Okay. So basically, once after, as mentioned in this diagram, right, it's a kind of 10,000 feet view of the CICD implementation I have in my project. Basically, like, once after the Go code is pushed into the GitHub, it will be triggering the GitHub action workflow. Okay, and GitHub action will be invoking the continuous integration and continuous deployment process basically. So this is what we are going to discuss. So basically, in that aspect, we will also deep dive in the whatever demo scenario I have created, right, as part of my workflow creation, right. So basically, basically in my aspect, I have the Golang project on which I am doing the CICD, right. So once after code commit happened, there is a various triggers in the GitHub Action workflow. So on the push to the specific branch, the GitHub Action workflow will be triggered. So the top upper part in this diagram is continuous integration flow, wherein I am running the Go linting for checking the Go syntax and that kind of syntax checking linting process. And then Go is a kind of as a programming language providing the test-driven development kind of framework within Go itself using Go test framework. So I have created test cases using that, and I'm running that as part of the flow. And then there is a Go build process that it will be building the executable, right? And then what I have done is I have created a Docker file. Using a Docker file, I am creating a Docker image, and I will be shipping it into the Docker Hub registry in my own Docker Hub account actually. So once after it is being pushed, the CA part is completed in my demo project, and then comes the CD part, wherein I am creating an infrastructure in Kubernetes infrastructure in Minikube using Terraform basically, and then I am deploying the image whatever is pushed in the Docker Hub registry here, and then I am exposing the service and also exposing the endpoint using port forward command, just to show the how it is how the API is accessible, whether it is accessible or not. So that's a kind of end-to-end integration workflow I wanted to have as part of my workflow. So I have created it, right. So in this explanation, the parts wherein deployment into the infrastructure, infrastructure till the service exposing part, it's called continuous deployment, because since it's a demo, I don't need to do it in a approval workflow. I done without any approval only, right. So that's the idea basically. And then finally, coming to the GitHub Actions introduction. So GitHub Action as a concept, basically it is having a YAML file. So GitHub Action supports different programming languages, and there are predefined templates available for GitHub Actions. Basically, after discussing this, we are just moving on to the next part of the GitHub Actions explanation part, basically, so that we can understand about it, and then I'll move ahead with the code walkthrough of the GitHub action workflow, whatever I created for the Golang project I have, right? So basically, like GitHub action having a on push trigger in which it will be triggering the workflows, right? Workflow here in called as pipelines in other orchestration tools. And whenever the workflow is triggered, it will be spinning up a runner environment in GitHub itself. It will be provided by GitHub, and it is also possible to configure our own runner environments if there are need for larger jobs that needs to be run as part of your workflows, right? And then each workflow will be having a job, and each job will be having different steps. So here the step is the one where we will be doing the actual automation of the CA and CD process, right? And inside the step we will be having actions. So this is where the automation of whatever the code editing process or Terraform installation or whatever it is, right? Or code checkout, everything can be considered here as actions, right? So basically, like GitHub Action provides larger support from the community for marketplace actions. So if you are working on any specific technology and if you need any support for GitHub Action workflow to be included in your job, you can just explore the marketplace, GitHub Action marketplace, right? So as I mentioned, like workflow is a YAML format, and it has the sections like trigger, jobs, and steps to perform the CICD actions, right? So that's about GitHub Actions introduction, and I will move on to the code walkthrough part, right? Okay, so as I mentioned, for any CICD, code base is the. Hope you guys are able to see my VS Code. Just acknowledge if you are able to see my VS Code. Are you guys able to see my VS Code screen? Visual Studio Code. Okay, so yeah, hopefully I can see that in the chat. Okay, yeah. So basically, like as I mentioned, we would be needing the code base for implementing our CI/CD pipelines, right? So in my case, I have created a Golang project. The project is basically will be used to convert the given URL link to the QR code, right? So basically, I have a structure of main.go wherein it will be calling the render HTML function, and then inside the render HTML function, it will be rendering a HTML page, right? And it can be accessed through the port 1718, and that is mentioned here, right? So yeah, so this is the high-level view of this code, and as I mentioned, I also have created a Docker file, right? And then using this Docker file, I create the Docker images and I push it to the Docker Hub registry, right? So I will quickly show, I will quickly execute this build package, whatever I have created for this Golang code. Okay, so I have already executed and the executable is already available. So I run this command go build, right, and then I'll be executing this. So basically, like whenever we are going for CI/CD implementation, it is for any DevOps engineer to understand the development process of how the package is getting created. Like what is the build process the package is undergoing to create the package, right? So that's why that's when this interaction between the DevOps engineer with the developer is important, right? In some teams, development team would be able to create pipelines, but general as a practice, as a DevOps engineer, we need to know what is the development process one particular technology stack is going through to create the packages, right? So in this case, it will be running the Go build package, and it will be creating the link to QR, okay, executable, and I'll be running this link to QR executable now. So you can see that executable is now running. I just printed a message just for an interactive purpose, like QR URL to QR converter is now running. I mentioned this here, and I'll be accessing this local host now just to show that this package is working in my local environment, right? Okay, so yeah, I think I moved the screen. Hope it will be visible. Yes, I think there's a delay of 2 3 seconds. Yes, actually, yeah, yes, Sushit, it is available in GitHub. Actually, you can just go to GitHub. Uh, so this is the repository path name. Okay, so I'll be providing my company's URL. Okay, okay, Cloud Engine Labs. So I forgot to mention in my introduction, I recently started in my own company, right? Okay, so I'll be just clicking on the show QR. Okay, so if you guys are scanning this QR, it will be opening up the website, the cloudenginelabs.io. Okay, so now we confirmed that this code is working in my local. Now we will see, okay, how I have created the packages for this, right? Okay, and yeah, and I'll be just breaking this session of I'll just coming out of this executable session and yeah. Okay, so now as I mentioned, now we confirmed that the Go project is ready for doing the CICD. Okay. Now the next step is we need to understand like what is the development process and build and package process it is going through, right? In this case, we have to do the Go build command, and then there is also Go TDD test cases I have created for confirming my code is working in local, right? So basically, like as a Golang developer, if anyone is aspiring to coming become as a Golang developer, they also need to learn the Go testing, basically, right? To write test cases for their own code, basically, right? So I have written test cases for my project, and I'll be running Go test command. Okay. So if I run this command, it will just show that test cases are passing, right? And anyway, this capturing these details and all anyway manual only. So basically, like as a developer, if you are running this code, it will be basically should be running this code uh, and it will be displaying that message, right? Let me see that. I don't know why it is taking time, but. So basically, like if you run this command, it will be showing up this test case is passing. Okay, yeah, you can just see that. Okay, whatever output message I have given in the once after the QR is accessed, that is getting showed and it is showing that it is the test case is getting passed, right? So this is the Go test cases for developer to run their on the Go testing Go projects basically, right? So basically, like as part of this, as a DevOps engineer, I need to capture there is a Go build process is there. There is a Go test command is getting run for on this project, and then they need to create the executable out of this package, right? So basically, like we have to capture this as a steps, and then I have preferred the method of Docker file to create the image, right? And if you are a DevOps engineer already and worked on Docker, you might be knowing about this, right? So basically, like first line of Docker file should be having the which image we are using, and then these are all some of the environment variable needed to run the Go Go based commands in our image, and then I'm setting up the working directory inside the image, and I'm copying all the Go files inside the image home path, working directory path. So if I can give ls star go star, it will show only the Go files that is needed to build the package, right? And since we already captured the Go build step, right? So we are adding the Go build command here, and then I'm providing the executable name as link to QR, and I'm storing it in the slash directory. Okay, so that it will be easier to access when we are running the command at the end of the Docker file. And I'm exposing the port 1718. That is the required port needed for exposing this executable, right? And it is created, right? So basically, like, the furthermore process is something like, we will be running this Docker build command, and then like, Docker run command to verify it is been running already, right? So I think in my case, I have already built the Docker image, right? And we will see that image is there or not. If it is there, I will show that as well by running that command. Okay. Yeah. So basically, like, few weeks back, I have built the local test image that is created out of this Docker file. Okay. And I will be running that image now. Okay, so that I can also show that this executable is running via Docker as well, because these are all the manual steps we needed to confirm before automating our CI/CD pipelines, right? So that's the idea basically. Okay, so I'll be running Docker run -p 1718. I'll be exposing 1718 port in my system as well, and then I'll be doing it in detached mode, and then my image ID is gs docket / link to QR, okay, / local test, because local test image is the one I built out of this Golang package, right? Yeah, so that's it, and I'll be running this now. See, the Docker image is now running, and we will again access this executable, whatever the image running, right, container, using this local host only. So since we given a 1718 port, we can access the executable that is run out of this Docker run command, right, using the local host command. Okay, and I'll use this now. They like and open this. Hope you guys are following, but if you are not able to follow, you can just go through the session once again after the recording is available. Okay. Oh my god, it's stuck. Okay. Okay. There are too many sessions running. So yeah. Uh, Local host 1718 /. Okay. So the endpoint is exposed in the root path only here. So / I'm entering. So now the executable would be accessed from the Docker image, whatever we built locally, right? So local test folder, whatever we run, it is running now. I'll just put some website like google.com. Okay, show QR. So if you can scan this QR, it will open google.com website for you. Okay, so now what we have seen is we have created a Golang demo project, and in that demo project we built the code locally as a developer. Okay, and then we created a Docker file as a DevOps engineer, understanding the development process, and then we run the Docker file and created an image out of this, and that image is stored locally. And then we ran that Docker image, whatever is created locally, and we try to access the same thing is working from the Docker image as well or not. So now we confirm that this is working fine, right? So I will now stop this image. Oops. I will be stopping the image now. And then I'll just show the workflow, whatever I have created. I'll just start explaining the workflow I have created for this demo. Okay. So now we have played the role of both developer and DevOps engineer and created demo project for doing the CI/CD. Okay, and then created a Docker file and built the image locally and confirmed it is working fine. Okay, now it is time to automate this stuff in the GitHub Action workflow, right? So that's the idea. So let me open the GitHub repository I have. So now I will explain how to create GitHub action workflow in a GitHub repository. Okay. Hope this session is useful to folks. So let me open my repository. And as I mentioned earlier, this repository is freely available to access. If anyone wanted to fork it or star it or it's up to you guys to do that. So I have 15 more minutes to complete the 1 hour session, right? Okay. So yeah. So you can see I'll be going to the repository now. Yeah. So this is the repository I have created, the demo repository I have created, right? So I have like, opened it now. So basically, now I will explain, as I mentioned, how to create a GitHub action workflow here. So basically, for creating a GitHub action workflow in a repository, what we have to do is we have to go to this Actions tab, okay? And as I mentioned, you can see there's a new workflow button here. Once we open this new workflow, so you can see now that there are various suggestions GitHub itself providing. So based on your programming language needs, you can search for predefined workflows from this search box, okay? Or you can, okay, so as I mentioned, see here there is a GitHub action predefined workflow is there for Go build project. Actually, if you are having Go project, you can choose that. Similarly, there are multiple n number of predefined templates available for anyone to start doing this, right? With respect to GitHub action workflow creation. Okay, so that's the way. Go to Actions tab, create on new workflow, and then search for the template. Or if you are well versed in creating GitHub Actions workflow, you can just create setup workflow yourself. Okay, if someone is trying to create a workflow out of similar workflow for your project using my workflow, you can just choose this option, set up your workflow, and copy paste the code or the workflow code I have in my repository. Right? You can just use it. Actually, that's free to use. Actually, okay. So this is how we can create workflow, right? You go to Actions tab, choose new workflow, and if there is a need for template search, you can just do it. Otherwise, start your own workflow. Okay, that's about the how to create a GitHub action workflow for a repository. Okay, now once we create that actions GitHub action workflow, right, it will be creating a directory under the .github directory inside the repo, and it will be adding all the workflows inside the /workflows path. Okay, so in any project, if you wanted to see the workflow for the specific project, you can just go here and you can just search, look for your respective workflow need, right? So that's the idea basically. So here I have created a, basically as part of the demo, I have modularized my CICD pipeline. Okay, if you can see here, this is the main file in which I am calling all the CI job and the CD job I have created. Okay, and I'm also creating a CD job that will be spinning up a AWS EKS like, you know, cluster, and it will be doing the same thing in the EKS cluster. This is just to show the capability of GitHub Action as part of demo, but that is still in the works. So I have commented it out. But I have a working demo of CA job and CD job, right? Basically, uh, this is a kind of bit advanced workflow, I would say. If anyone is starting with learning GitHub Actions, you don't have to modularize like this, but instead you can have your entire workflow in the same file itself, right? Basically, whatever I have added in the let me open that as well, just for explanation purpose. Basically, what I have done is first I have created a CA workflow that will be having all the CA related tasks, right? Basically like linked to your CA job. So basically, like now you can see, this is the CA job I have showed in the PPT here. So it will be running like go linting, go test command, go build, Docker build, and Docker push. Right. This is the CA job I have. So I have automated the CA job using the GitHub Actions that are available readily using the GitHub Marketplace plugins only. So basically, I'll start explaining the CA workflow I have. Right. So first, it will be like triggering. Like, what we have is like we have the CI/CD workflow, and it will be triggering in the any code push onto the any branch code, right? So basically, like if you are having multiple branches, and if you are trying to push your code into the branch, it will trigger this workflow and run this workflow on top of the branch itself, right? Because this is to confirm this particular development the team is doing works on any branch, right? Because we need to, as a team, we need to confirm the workflow needs to confirm that the code should be error free, right? So that's why like now I mentioned it as any branch. But if you have any specific branch requirement, you can just mention the branch name alone here. That's okay. That's completely fine. Okay. Since this is a demo, I'm running this workflow on any on a code push to the any branches in the repository of link to QR. Okay, that's the idea. And it will also run whenever someone is raising the pull request on merging their code into main branch. Okay, that's another on trigger check I have, right? As I mentioned, GitHub action workflow triggered on push trigger. Basically, that will be triggering based on the need of the branch requirement, right? Okay, so this is the two on push triggers I have in my workflow. Once after it is being spin up, right, it will be calling the CA job, whatever I have in my CA, the CI/CD workflow. So we'll just see like what is there in the link to your CA code. Okay. So basically, like you can see, I have added environments variable environment. So basically, like GitHub action having something called secrets. Okay, in the secrets, it can be seen here in settings. For each repository, we can add sensitive information in secrets, and we can provide the details here. Okay, so basically, like we can use that for any username and passwords or any environment variable that is sensitive to us, right? So basically, in the scope of this today's session, I'll just explain like what is there in this CA, and I'll just run it, okay? Because we have 8 more minutes to complete the session, okay? And anyway, like I'll also have a follow-up session later next week, okay? Basically, in the CA job, first step is we need to check out the code in the runner environment, right? So basically, here Ubuntu latest is a runner in which rest of the CA process will be running, okay? So you can see first check is checking out the code. Okay, so there is a predefined actions developed by GitHub Action itself to check out the code in the runner environment. Next, we will be setting up the Go environment, Go executable inside the runner environment, right? So I am we can provide versions to this action basically, right? And I am providing version 1.19 as a Go executable for my CA flow. Okay, and then I am doing the I am having another action for running the Golang CA check. Right, it will be the code linting process for the demo project we have in the code Golang. And then, as we captured earlier, we need to run the go test command and go build command to build the executable, right? Just to confirm it is working fine as per the expectation, right? So, in any step of this workflow, if there is any error, it will break. And we can also set up notifications to the respective developer or developer team to fix the errors, right? So that is not covered as part of this demo. I have only capturing the steps needed for it, right? And the rest of the thing, like if there is any error and if there is no notification, we can still be able to see the errors from the GitHub Action workflow logs. Okay. So as I mentioned, like this will be the C code linting, and this is unit testing using go test command. and then we are building the code using Go build, and then I'm setting up the Docker executable to run the Docker login and Docker build push command, right? Basically, right? Okay, that's the idea. So I'm setting up Docker build actually, so that it will set up the Docker, and then I'm doing the Docker login action to my Docker Hub registry, so that it will push the image to the Docker Hub registry in my own Docker account, okay, and Docker Hub account, okay. So I'm doing the Docker login again here. As I mentioned, I have added this in the secrets, and then if needed, we can add tags and labels. It's up to us as a process. We can define whether it is needed or not. And then I'm doing the Docker build and push. So whatever Docker file we have created for the demo project, right? It will be building and pushing the image in the Docker Hub registry in my Docker Hub account. Okay, that's the idea. So basically, here you can see this is an action. This is the community action provided by GitHub Actions, and this is also another community action provided by Go developers. And I'm running Go, and I'm using that action. I'm running after installing Golang, I'm using Go run command, test and build command to test the code and build the code. And then I'm using Docker's setup build action for setting up the Docker command in my runner environment. And then I'm logging in to my Docker Hub registry to push the images into the Docker Hub. And then finally, I am building the image and pushing it into the Docker Hub registry. Basically, that's the idea. Okay. So this is about the CA workflow. Okay, and I think we are on top of our 1 hour session today. Okay, and I will deep dive this workflows more into the upcoming sessions, and I'm happy to have any questions from you guys in the meantime. You guys can post the questions, and thank you, Dhruvin. Yeah, glad to meet you as well. Thanks for joining the session. And yeah, hope this session might be useful for you guys. So basically, just to summarize in this session, we have seen what is DevOps as a practice, and then we have seen what are the pillars of DevOps practice, how to implement the DevOps practice in the teams. Yeah. Okay. Sure, Dhruvin. Yeah. Sure. Okay. And so we have seen what is how to implement and what are the pillars of DevOps practice, and we have seen the general flow of CI/CD and discuss about CI/CD deployment and delivery differences. And then we have seen the abstract view of my workflow and detailed view of my workflow I have created. And then we have seen the introduction to GitHub Action. And then we have covered what are all required things for our Golang project, and we also seen we built it manually and access the executable using manual executable as well as using Docker image as well. And then finally we have seen how to create a GitHub action workflow. Okay, and furthermore, my session is going to be doing more deep dive into the GitHub action workflow and doing the CI/CD part itself. Right, that's the idea. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the summary. And if you guys have any questions, you can just post it. So Dhruvin, you can also post your questions in the chat so that we can also discuss specifically on the question in the next session. Okay, so that's about for today's session, and thank you guys for joining in the session. And hopefully, we'll have more sessions like this, and we'll deep dive into this. Okay, guys, thank you, and we are on top of our 1 hour session, and I want to be stringent in the timing so that you guys can have any more work also. You can just follow it later, because I wanted to have it as a proper session kind of format so that it can be useful for folks also, right? Yeah, that's the idea. And if you guys are if you guys want to recommend my channel to other folks also, you can just share about it. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot, and have a great evening. Yeah. Bye bye. I'll be stopping the broadcast now. Okay, guys. Thank you. Have a great evening. Bye bye.